Welcome, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole, 22-17, held today, Tuesday, October 10th. And I call this meeting to order and request Mr. Joel Longfellow if he could lead us in the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons' command. Quand bras se porter le pays, il se porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate you being here once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any addendum items, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. One, under delegations, Tommy Fruit has withdrawn for this evening.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councilor Bodnar, seconded by Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none, it shall be so noted. I also call for the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 21-17 held on September 25th, 2017. Councilor Dench, moved by, seconded by Councilor Maine. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I move on to now a determination of items requiring separate discussion. Mr. Bodnar.
Item 1, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Any others? Being no further items of a separate discussion, I'd call for approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councilor Desmarais, seconded by Councilor Maine. All those in favor? Opposed? Could I see the hands once more? Hold them high, thank you. Carried. Our next item is a presentation of the Israel Responder Award. And at that time, perhaps I'll just give you a basic, a little background on this award first. This is a new award. Responder Award. Again, growing up in Colborne, as a responder, began swimming at the age of 15 in either Lake Erie or the Welland Canal, or most likely both, at the age he did, age 15. Between 1927 and 1933, Isidore competed against such notable swimming greats as Marvin Nelson and Giannini Garabi. During this era, when the Canadian National Exhibition, Marathon Swim, some of the older folks might remember that, was one of the premier world marathons. Isidore finished in the top 3 4 times. Good friend Ernie Marsh stated he was quite a swimmer. He tried his best and brought considerable recognition to Port Colborne. Isidore Sponder passed away in December of 1986 at the age of 74. In 1993, the Centennial Pool Lift for the handicapped swimmers was dedicated to the citizens of Port Colborne by the Sponder family. With the decommissioning of Centennial Pool and building of the Valet Health and Wellness Center, the city, alongside Isidore's family, wanted to ensure his memory lived on in Port Colborne. In addition to his name on the donor wall at the Valet Health and Wellness Center, the city has created the Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy to be presented annually to a member of the Port Colborne Piranhas swim team. The recipient is he who mirrors the traits, he or she, exhibited by Isidore: a competitive spirit, dedicated in the sport, and always giving 110%, win or lose. We're fortunate here this evening to have two members of Isidore's family here with us, and I want to invite the nephew and former Port Colborne resident, Fred Horvath, and his other nephew, John Shaw, to say a few words. Fred, could you come forward? Mr. Shaw? Fred, I invite you to speak.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, distinguished staff, since I'm a staff member of another municipality, I know how distinguished you are, members of the public. On behalf of John and myself and the Sponder family, we're tickled pink that this is happening this evening. We don't know much about our uncle, but we know several things. Number one is, I took my aunt to Tuck's Jewelers 13 years ago to buy my bride of the day, a beautiful diamond necklace. Mr. Tuck started talking to my aunt, who was 93 years of age, and says, I remember you. We're the ones that did the sterling silver tea set for Isidore back in 1931. They closed the city of Port Colborne down to honor his accomplishments. Let me tell you, my aunt died a year later. She died very proud, very happy about it. The second thing I remember about Isidore is Art Stead, former director of recreation, and one of my mentors in my professional career, who said at the commissioning of the chairlift, checking Isidore's marathon swim records, if he went into the Olympics, he would have won 4 Olympic golds. We've never forgot that part of it. So on behalf of John and myself, Mr. Mayor, we're very honored about this. I took John over to see the Vale Rec Center. Let me tell you, for a small community, you have one of the best recreational facilities. You got to be very proud of it. We're very proud that Isidore's name's on that, as well as this trophy being presented. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, and thank you to the City of Port Colborne.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, gentlemen. I would also like to call up Jen Lauer, the coach of the Piranha swim team, for this presentation. Is Jen here this evening? Then we'll move right on. Could Robert please come up? Robert is 12 years old and has been participating in the Piranha swim team and taking swim lessons, stroke improvement classes, for 3 years. His cousin also joined the team, knowing Robert wouldn't be there too. In addition to this honor, Robert was named the most improved award winner this year. We have the trophy, which we will keep on display at the Valet Health and Wellness Center, and we have a plaque for you as well. Now this is heavy. Can I just present it to you? Don't go away yet. That's going to be in the trophy case at the Valet Center, so you can look at it every week when you go to swim. However, for you, we've got this trophy. So it's presented to Robert Kerr. That's heavy. Why don't you just put it down? I'll drop it if I hold it. Presented to Robert Kerr, recipient of the City of Port Colborne Isidore Sponder Memorial Trophy for 2017, recognizing your competitive spirit and dedication to the sport of swimming. I want to show you your name here. Okay, there, start.
Perfect.
Oh, I think we have some more pictures coming over here. Thank you, sir. And while we're making our presentations, I'd like to recognize participants at the 2017 Special Olympics Ontario Provincial Summer Games. These are ladies and gentlemen in the orange tunics or jackets. It was my pleasure to welcome members of our community who traveled to the Peel region earlier this summer to participate in the 2017 Special Olympics Ontario Provincial Summer Games. These athletes, their coaches, and families have worked extremely hard year-round to achieve the level of excellence needed to participate in these games. We had participants in bocce and golf. I'd like to call each of the athletes up individually. First, we have Ron Favreau. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, we have Diane Gannon. How are you, Diane? Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have April Schill. Congratulations, April. Nice to see you again. There's Brown. Okay. Next is Scott Schill. Scott. Standing up front a little more. That's it.
That's okay. Perfect.
Next, we have P.J. Bolger. P.J. won the silver medal for golf. Congratulations, P.J. I had PJ in my soccer team several years ago. Next is Anna Maria Rossi, one of the coaches. It's all Rossi. Thank you. And Sheila Bolgers. Sheila's not here, but her son PJ will accept the certificate on her behalf. Thank you, Mom. Okay. could proceed with the next agenda item. As I have delegation, Marilyn Corey, citizen requesting a crosswalk between Shoppers Drug Mart on the corner of Catherine and Clarence Street and the Market Cafe. Mrs. Corey, could you come forward, please? We have roughly 10 minutes for your presentation.
Are you going to time me?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Mayor, councillors. Hi, I'm Marilyn Corey, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the people of Port Colborne to ask for a crosswalk of some description to ensure the safety of our citizens. The location of this proposed crossing is at the corner of Clarence and Catherine Streets, where Shoppers Drug Mart and the Market Cafe are across from each other, going from south to north or vice versa. This is an extremely busy spot, more so since Shoppers relocated to that corner. Because they have no parking lot of their own, people park over at the Market Square and then have to cross over to a very important store, if only for their medications. There are more seniors by the day in our city, requiring an array of mobility devices, which means that they are getting slower, which in turn makes this matter even more urgent. I'm given to understand this request has been made on several previous occasions, and I believe the response was something like, "It's in the works." But what exactly does that mean? How long does it take? We need this now, before someone gets badly hurt or worse. Not next year, not soon, we need it now. So I took it upon myself to see how great the need was, and I'm standing here tonight with more than 1,550 names to submit to you and to demonstrate the enthusiasm and the needs of the people. I've had people responding by saying things like, "Oh yes, we really need that." And "Oh yes, I almost got hit the other day." And "Oh, thank you so much for doing this on our behalf," etc., etc. I've had people stop me on the street, anxious to sign up. And many were so avid that they wanted to sign multiple times in order to ensure a positive outcome. At this time, I believe I still have a few minutes left. I would like to introduce Connie Fancy, who is the owner of the Market Cafe, to say a few words. It's on.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just want to say Marilyn has gone way beyond for a citizen here. She has taken her own personal time to ensure this happens out of the greatness of her heart and respect for people of the city. So kudos.
Thank you, honey. Just read your...
Yeah, but I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, yeah, she's taken her time. She didn't just get signatures. She actually spoke to people, which means a lot. So I just wanted to add, I've actually seen 2 vehicle accidents, witnessed them myself. So, I mean, I'm there in the daytime. I'm sure there's been other accidents that have happened there, but I've personally witnessed 2 myself. We've had a lot of customers who've said, you know, we should come before you, and Marilyn being one of them, and she's taken it upon herself and out of her schedule to do this, so it's great. Thank you for considering it, and we feel it's a huge safety issue.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm not finished. It's not 10 minutes.
Go ahead. I'm not going to cut you off.
Now, the owner of Shoppers, Susan Marshall, is vacationing in England, but she has left a letter which I would like to read. Mr. Maloney and council members, thank you for taking the time to hear our suggestion this evening regarding a new crosswalk at the corner of Catherine and Clarence Streets in downtown Port Colborne. My name is... Oh, sorry. That's yours I'm reading. Dear council members, I am respectfully asking the council to consider putting in a crosswalk across Clarence Street at the Market Cafe corner. Before we opened the new store, I had asked if this could be done, but I was denied. Many of your customers and other residents across Clarence Street at this corner. Sometimes cars stop in one direction and wave the person across the road. This causes confusion and could lead to someone being run over or knocked down. It is a very unsafe practice. Please consider putting a crosswalk to slow the traffic down and allow our residents to cross the street safely. Thank you for your consideration. Susan Marshall. So I sincerely hope that you will give this matter the attention it deserves and come up with a solution that everyone can be happy with. Thank you. Now, do I have time for some suggestions?
Yes?
A pedestrian activated light like they have on Main East at Wellington. I'm sure there's way more action down here than there is at Main East and Wellington. Number 2, or a 3-way stop. 3, white lines across the road with a banner across and above the road yield to pedestrians. And if this is not forthcoming right away, as an interim, how about a traffic officer for Friday's market day, which is really nuts down there? Or a crossing guard from Monday to Thursday at lunchtime, say 11:30 to 1 p.m. We have to do something now before, as I said, somebody gets really hurt or worse. Thank you for your time. And who do I give these to?
That's your petition?
Yeah. Thank you.
And could we also have your notes, too?
You got them.
You got them? Got copies? Okay. Any questions? Hold on, Mrs. Corey. There may be a
Okay.
couple questions from members of council. To my right? Any questions? Yes, Mrs. Kenny.
Thank you, Marilyn, for bringing this forward. We've heard about it, but my question is really not so much for you, but for Chris, because he's probably the guy that said it's in the works. So maybe you could explain to all of us just exactly what it's in the works means.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny and the rest of the room. Actually, there's a report coming to council at the next meeting. That report will have staff's recommendations along with numbers for budgeting, associated costs with all the various scenarios that have been mentioned here, as well as some of the others that we've investigated to date. And hopefully we will have some decision moving forward from there.
Hopefully you will have some decision at that meeting. Is that what you said? I can't really hear you.
That's correct. Once council gives us the direction based on the recommendation of the report or the modification thereof, there'll be dollars and cents in that report, and council will be able to choose which option they would prefer to install.
Which option? So that means we are going to get something. Yes?
Provided that council approves it, how long thereafter can we see something at that intersection?
If council was to approve, then it would be a case of the dollars and cents, depending on which version or which option council has chosen. Dollars could be anywhere from $25,000 to $125,000, depending on which option is chosen. That being said, then council would have to decide where the funds are coming from, and then once that's been established, we can then go to tender and have the installation.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
If it's a matter of money, I can paint the damn lines on the road. I know somebody who will put 2 posts that says crosswalk, and I can make a banner. It won't cost you anything.
We appreciate you're very anxious. Go.
I have one more question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had one more question, but this time through you to Mr. Aquilina. Mr. Aquilina, her suggestion of using a crossing guard, which we have school crossing guards, which, you know, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Maybe it's the cheapest route, who knows? But what is the possibility? Do we have any extra staff in that department that we could utilize at that corner?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kenny, that's absolutely a possibility.
Okay.
We would need some direction from council as to the ability to get the crossing guard established. We can make that happen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Do crossing guards have to have special training or special
They do.
coverage or something?
Yes.
They do.
Because I can
And so
do
with
it.
this person, Mr. Demery and then Mr. Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mrs. Corey, I just want to let you know that the crosswalk that is on Main Street East that you referenced, that took quite some time to come through council and get that done. Both Councillor Doucette and myself pushed on that for a long time. We had petitions brought forward from one of the community members, such as the one you brought tonight, and it still took 1.5 years after that. And then we ended up having to allocate the funds through our city council when it's actually a regional road, just to make it happen. So take heart, know that these things sometimes take some time, but also know that there's no one here on council that doesn't recognize the need. So something will get done, I'm sure, but it may take longer than you're expecting it today.
But it's already been talked about for so long. How long does it
Ours
take?
was talked about for about 8 years before it actually got to on this table, so it does take time,
You just
but
said
it will
was a
happen.
regional road, didn't you?
It is a regional road, and the region wouldn't do it. So because
That's on Main Street.
unfortunately, to do anything like that, you have to meet something called provincial warrants, and not much in Port Colborne does that. So it's very difficult.
Mr. Mayor.
But we went past it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Corey. You've done all the legwork here. What do you think would be the best option? Would it be the electronic crosswalk where people push and move?
Yeah.
Because I know the 3 lines on the street wouldn't work in the wintertime.
That would be the best option,
Yeah.
yes. That's what
Okay,
I've
so
got
that's-
for my number 1.
Okay.
But I didn't think you'd go for that because of the expense.
So we have to see what all the expenses are for the various options. And then we'll make a decision.
It's the only one I know of.
Okay.
So we thank you for your efforts. We also have Mrs. Benson and Mrs. Fancy with you. And please stay tuned next week or next
The next
cycle.
meeting, I'll be here.
That'll be in 2 weeks.
I'll be
2
here.
weeks. Be patient with us. You've been patient so long, but just a little bit more.
Only a little bit. I'll hold you to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Corey. Next agenda item is the mayor's report. In response to Mr. Main's inquiry, Mr. Main requested that we extend an invitation to Dr. Suzanne Johnson, President of Niagara Health System, to attend an upcoming council meeting to provide an update regarding the status of the Urgent Care Center in Port Colborne. She has confirmed that she will be in attendance at the November 27th meeting. And quite frankly, I encourage all members of council, if they have questions for Mrs. Johnson, perhaps they could prepare them and provide me with copies so I can make sure that we have an answer for your questions that night. So please mark that on your calendars. I would like to point out there are several big activities here this weekend in Port Colborne. Our fire hall will be holding an open house this Saturday from 10 to 2 with activities for the whole family. This is generally a very widely attended function. It is Fire Prevention Week, and the families can learn more about being safe in their homes, especially the children. We're also hosting simultaneously, just a few short yards further north, the grand opening of our new Engineering and Operations Center on Saturday. The ribbon cutting will take place at 10 a.m. followed by guided tours of the facility. This is a great opportunity to come out and see how your city facilities work for you. And we will watch that center being built and growing, and we're anxious to get into it. Mr. Lee, do you have anything further to say on that?
To you, Mr. Mayor, actually, we just hope that we get very good attendance. We're hoping for good weather, and all of the staff are anxious to escort people through and show off their new home.
Thank you. And I know the fire chief will have a few comments when it's his time to give a report. Thank you. Regional Council's report, Mr. Barrick.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have to say that was a great presentation by Marilyn Corey. I've known her, or rather, she knew me since I was an infant onward. So it was great to see her here this evening. And I know this council will take her request seriously. So I have a couple of quick updates tonight from a regional perspective. First and foremost, starting with the Police Services Board, of which I'm a member. On September 28th this year, the board unanimously passed the appointment of Brian McCullough to the position of Chief of Police for the Niagara Regional Police Service. Prior to this appointment, Chief McCullough served over 4 years as the Deputy Chief of Operational Services, where he provided oversight and leadership to over 650 frontline uniform officers and detectives assigned to district operations, emergency, and investigative services. We're very proud to have Brian as the chief of the service, and he will be sworn in as chief on Friday, October 27th at Club Italia in Niagara Falls. The public is also invited to attend the swearing-in ceremony at 2 o'clock. Brett Flynn also has been appointed unanimously by the board to the position of Deputy Chief of Police of Operational Services, in essence backfilling Chief McCullough's previous role. And Deputy Chief Flynn has held several management positions as a superintendent of district operations overseeing frontline policing across the region, and superintendent of emergency services and investigative support services, leading members of centralized investigative and emergency response units. An introduction ceremony for Deputy Chief Brett Flynn will take place at a date and time to be announced a little bit later. And that wraps up our executive leadership team for the police services, including a recent announcement, I believe over the summer, of Deputy Chief Bill Forty from the RCMP. So the three of them, we're happy to have that team in place moving forward. On a related note, with respect to the Police Services Board, we were in receipt of a letter from the City of Port Colborne, specifically the East Village Neighborhood Improvement Task Force, requesting $2,500 for, let me get it right here, conducting a community engagement project, which would include a neighborhood open house where residents will be able to meet with local service agencies, etc. And I'm happy to state here that that request has been approved by the board of $2,500, and I did check today with Executive Director Deb Reed that that check will be cut this Thursday, and so I'll be there to pick it up and possibly make arrangements with Councillor Desmarais or yourself, Mayor, for the delivery of the funds as requested and delivered by the police board. On a couple of other matters of interest, possibly, the development charge issue at the region has been taking some time. It's been ongoing, and it looks like it's going to take a little more time. We discussed it Thursday night, and it's been deferred back to Corporate Services Committee. And the primary reason for that is, quite frankly, there's not a level of comfort by regional council, I think, with the current iteration, because I'll only speak for myself now. The increases given the current environment. So there's greater discussion around it. There were some amendments, but that has been deferred, and I will continue to update this city council as well, understanding the stance that you've all taken on development charges here in the city that has proven results. We want to do the best we can at the regional level to support those efforts. The other matter is the region did authorize the issuance of debentures for the city of Port Colborne, up to $5.5 million for the Nickel Area Storm Sewers project, and up to $645,000 for water meter and marine lift projects. Furthermore, we do have our 2018 capital budget meeting this Thursday at Regional Council as well. And just more of notifications. The region is also happy to be in receipt of being the top upper tier municipality in all of Canada on an Open City Index. The region is recognized again as the top upper tier municipality in Canada on Public Sector Digest 2017 Open City Index. The index, in its third year, is Canada's first study to benchmark the open data initiatives of Canadian municipalities and examines the readiness, implementation, and impact of municipal data sets that Canadian municipalities make publicly and easily accessible to residents, businesses, and community organizations. Niagara's strong performance in the open data community is in part due to Niagara's open data portal. The portal is available at www.niagaraopendata.ca, was launched last year as a joint community project with representation from several Niagara municipalities, nonprofits, and educational institutions. The portal currently boasts over 270 data sets ranging from transit maps, cultural landmarks, municipal boundaries, and tourist information. And if anyone hasn't yet been on it, I encourage you to take a look. There is a lot of information there that could be helpful for anything that you may be looking for. And finally, Mayor, there are several open houses scheduled to display with respect to draft secondary plans and land use plans around the Niagara Go hub stations. So far, the rollout of Go Transit is slated to be finalized by 2023. We're hoping to get that pushed to 2021 in time for the Canada Summer Games, but there is progress definitely being made, and the next open house is in Niagara Falls on October 18th, 5:30 to 7:30. So that's my report this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barrick, and thank you for the good news. Go check for the East Village. Members of council, question to Mr. Barrick. Yes, Mr. Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Barrick. Dave, thank you so much for all your efforts on behalf of the people of the East Village and the Action Committee. And just to let you know, October 21st will be the first of the open houses that we're planning. And the people who should be wanting to be at that will get flyers in their mailboxes, and it's open to residents and people who own property in the East Village. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout, and I'm hoping you can attend. Thank you.
Is that the same date as the mayor, the police chief's installation?
His date is October 27th.
27th, thank you.
So thank you for that update. I will be there. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Barrick? There being none, thank you, Mr. Barrick. Oh, Mr. Maines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just a little slow on the draw there. Through you to Mr. Barrick. I appreciate your drive for this development charge. It just seems that, in my opinion anyway, we try to do due diligence here in Port Colborne, and it seems like the region's jumped in to grab the extra money that we were not going to collect. So you can pass that on, because that's basically the way I feel about it. So keep up the fight, because I think it's helped Port Colborne in a lot of respects as far as new development and houses. So we're a little different, as you know. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Your feedback is appreciated.
Thank you. Next item is councilors' inquiries, councilors' comments. Anything to my right, my left, Mr. Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris. Chris, can you give us an update on what's going on at Pleasant Beach, especially with the enclosure?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. Yes, we've awarded the enclosure contract to Peninsula Fence. They have, their locates have been ordered, and they have anticipated construction in the first part of next week. So we hope to have that up and functioning before week's end, and once it's in place, we'll be distributing the lock code to the neighborhood.
Okay.
Go ahead, another banner.
On the same thing on Pleasant Beach, but through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dan. Dan, there's a suggestion from a resident that, and I really don't need a final answer tonight because we know we're still doing signage and we're going to have it up by spring, but they're wondering whether a sign somewhere on that road up closer to Highway 3 saying no public beach and something like local traffic only, is that even a possibility? Is there rules around like local traffic only signs? Just your brief thoughts on it, and we can fill in the blanks as we go, I guess.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bonner, I deferred that question to Chris Lee, dealing with the city roads and with traffic.
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodner. Yes, we can investigate that by all means. I have had previous discussions with you on the exact locations that you're referring to, so we can come up with a layout and throw some quick costs on that and see if that's actually a possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris Lee. Chris, on the weekend, Councillor Danch circulated some photos of property down at the end of Canal Bank Road that had suffered some flooding coming off the Op Center. And there was a great amount of rain, obviously, on the weekend, and we noticed that in the East Village, the southern end of that was flooded as well. But that has all drained off as of this morning. Everything seems to be under control. But I went by the Canal Bank property just before I came to council tonight and took some photos, and there's still quite a bit of water laying around there. So it doesn't seem to be draining properly, and I wonder if there were any plans to take care of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Demery, I've actually tasked staff today with a site visit to come up with some alternatives. They had some different suggestions. We'll hopefully be following through on those in the very near future. We'll make some decisions on controlling the water. To the north, actually, is the water that's the issue. It's not the actual operations center itself, but it's the water running off of Colborne Drive and all of those lands to the north. So we will be trying to implement a process or a plan, if you would, that will bring those waters directly to the drainage system that's on the op center, which then can drain freely to the Weir Channel.
Okay, that would be great. I thank you for doing that. And could you please let the residents know, the residents along Canal Bank, that they're pretty upset about this, and if you could keep them in the loop, that would be helpful.
I've actually instructed staff to have a discussion with them tomorrow if they're home.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Maine?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris, he's the most popular guy here. 109 Steel Street, they put a new frozen curb stop, I think 2 years ago, and it's never been remediated. The lawn sunk down about 6 inches, and they just put a pile of stone there. So I wonder if you could have a look at that as well. It looks like it needs a couple wheelbarrows, a little dirt, and a little bit of seed, but it doesn't look good.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Maine. We will definitely have a look at that first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note through you. As you know, we all had emails from property at 709 Lakeshore Road, and of the destination of that sand dune on that property. I contacted Councillor Barrett today, as he is senior, I think he's senior advisor at his staff at NPCA, and he was nice enough to contact me back and say that he will send a compliance technician to that property. And the individual that has been sending us all kinds of emails is allowing them to have access through her property to go and check this out. I think it's something that has to be done. You can't see it from the road. There's enough from the road that we need to take care of, but the sand dune damage is unbelievable. So I want to thank Councillor Barrett for at least taking action and sending somebody out. But now that I have Councillor Barrett here as well, and a totally different topic after that one, so I want to thank him for that. But Kalali Street, we still have a problem there just at that bridge. I think it's getting worse. I actually think the rail line there has dropped even more. It's getting worse. My neighbor, like I said, and he's an older gentleman, but he's tore his muffler off there, and so I'm still wanting to know from somebody who's going to pay for that damage. We have a sign there that says there's a bump, but a bump is a bump. This is a crater. It's not a bump anymore. And I just want to know from one of you, if anybody from your staff at the region, Councillor Barrick or Chris from you, have taken action with Trillium to get this. We can't keep saying, like, Marilyn hit it right on, what did they say, nail, when she said, it's in the works. It's in the works. In the works doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my neighbor down the street. What action is being taken on Kalali Street?
Mr. Lee, would you like to comment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny. I have actually had meetings with Trillium maintenance staff and their new president, and I'm now in the process of trying to expedite a meeting between myself and the regional staff and Trillium in the same room so that we can go through the details and get some schedule as to when this repair can happen.
And who can I bring the bill to for the damage to the car?
I believe we could hand it in to the clerk.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Councillor Barrett, did you have any comment on that as well?
Mr. Mayor?
Mayor, just on that point, thank you. Councillor Kenny brought this issue to my attention as well from a regional perspective, and I did have conversation with regional staff in terms of areas of responsibility and jurisdiction, and nobody ever likes hearing not my jurisdiction. So that's not the approach that I take, and I know that's not the approach that Councillor Kenny takes, and I appreciate that. So yes, that section is a regional road. Where the rail line crosses, I believe the city of Port Colborne owns the rail line, and then but Trillium leases it. So there are 3 parties involved, and there's a recognition of that. I'm happy to hear this meeting being set up to discuss the issue further. I'm happy to make myself available to be part of that meeting, and probably Councillor Kenny will make herself available as well. The best opportunity to get things done is when we're all at the same table at the same time. And that's the best way we serve our residents. So I'm happy to be kept in the loop on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Danch?
Thank you, Your Honor. You can't leave me out. I've got 4 points of interest here, and through you to Chris, let's pick on him tonight. I had asked about Highway 58 in that left-hand turning lane. I sat there last night and watched nothing go by me, and was wondering about that advanced screen, if it's just mandatory or can it be adjusted or whatever.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dance. I've actually tasked staff with contacting the MTO and check if the signaling is as per the sequences which was originally installed to make certain there's nothing out. There was a great deal of time and effort put in the past to get that signaling correct so that the advanced screens are of the right length and not too long or too short, and so we're just having that verified in the field.
Okay, well, we'll just keep hitting you up on that every couple of weeks. Through you again, Mr. Mayor, Chris, that stop sign, I question you on Oakwood and Highland there. I was just kind of wondering, did we get anywhere with that, or are we still looking into it?
There's a report, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Dance, there's a report going to become the council specific to that intersection and the stop sign.
Okay, excellent. And then one more point of interest. I believe it was back in April that we had an accident on Main Street in front of Young's Insurance. We kind of hammered you about getting this light put back up. Now we have a pole, we have no light, and we still have no lights on the street. You've told me this light's coming in November. I mean, how long does it take to get a street light?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, back to Councillor Dance. Our electrical maintenance contractor who does our street lighting is actually going to be working on the energizing of those 3 lights that are in place. The other light that you refer to that we're waiting on parts for because of the custom nature of that fixture, that's the length of time they've told us that it's going to be before we get delivery, which is the November date you mentioned.
I don't want to laugh too loud. 7, 8 months to get a light. Anyways, we'll move along. Last meeting, Your Honor, you had asked me about a BIA meeting if we were doing anything on Main Street, and yes, of course we are. We do have a meeting tomorrow night at Bremfield's at 7 o'clock if there was anyone else that was interested. We meet once a month, once every 2 months, whenever we feel the need, but we do have a meeting tomorrow night, so we'll follow up with you after that, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Being none, are there any responses from members of staff to any of the previous councillor items or otherwise? Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think I'm going to recruit Mrs. Quarry to assist me with her smoke alarm program. I've got a list of names she can go and tackle. I just want to give you an update with regards to our smoke alarm program and some of the things that are evolving out of it. So far, since March, we've done 1,004 homes. We've installed 639 smoke alarms, 135 carbon monoxide alarms, 273 combination alarms, and 308 batteries. I'll also let you know that we advertised that we're going to give smoke and carbon monoxide alarms away to residents in this particular month of October. We don't just give them to them. We have to come and install them to make sure they do get up and they're installed in the proper locations. I will tell you that we had a truck down at the Harvest Festival, and that first day alone there was 44 people signed up. And quite frankly, I believe that's part of the reason why our statistics are where they are. They've actually gone down to 31% compliance from 33, because I think a number of people, if you recall at the last meeting, I alluded to the fact that people have a tendency to seem to be waiting for us to come around. So I'm thinking possibly some of these numbers are a bit skewed because of that whole thing. We're only hearing from the people that need them versus the ones that already have them. And added to that, all of our fire department is out over this entire month on Tuesday nights. They'll be doing door-to-door throughout the entire city, including the rural area. On a side note, the mayor had mentioned about our open house, which is this Saturday from 10 till 2. I appreciate that. But an important thing, and I mentioned this before, and council has supported in the past, that as far as we haven't given up our due diligence with regards to charging people. We've just recently, as of last week, a tenant in a high-rise apartment was charged with disabling a smoke alarm. That individual was fined $700 in court for disabling a smoke alarm. And we had the opportunity within this last number of days to write a ticket to a resident, a homeowner, who didn't have smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms in their home as is required, and that ticket was for $365. So I have to ask the people in our community, are you better to call us and come and put up a free smoke and carbon monoxide alarm, or wait till we show up for a call and write you a ticket for $365? I think that answer is pretty easy to decide which way to go. So please give us a call, and we're more than happy to help at any time, day or night. Some people ask if we'll come out on weekends. Yes, we will. We come out at night. We'll come out at 2 o'clock in the morning if that's the only time somebody's available. So please call us. That again, I'll give you the office number. It's 905-834-4512, and we'll be more than happy to set up an appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions of Chief Cartwright? Being done, we move on to the agenda. It's consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could respond to council at the last council meeting, you will recall information regarding Pleasant Beach Road. So I'd just like to point out to council that the first thing is that the request to deal with the fire lanes, which council had previously made, is something that we're still working on between engineering, fire, and myself, a report on that matter. The other issue regarding signage, one thing that we were discussing today, in fact, was to deal with signage and look at TOD signs along Highway 3 that need to meet ministry standard, MTO standards. So that request to do that would come through the budget. Thankfully, the summer season is coming to an end. You wouldn't think so, but with the weather, but it is. So the council report will come forward at the time of budget to address that. The other matter that I looked into was how much time has staff spent to enforce parking. And since May to October, we've written 116 tickets for a total of $6,125. Staff's time just to deal with enforcement, you take, on average, they're there every day, it's 2 hours a day. So that amounts to 232 hours. You take in the salary, that works out to $6,862.50. So the revenue is less than the staff time. The one thing in the staff time that does not include that is the amount of time I'm spending dealing with people that are disputing parking tickets. So you can tack on at least another $1,000 to $2,000, because a lot of people, every time they get a ticket, either they're challenging it, they want to have a written screening or an in-person screening. So there's a lot of staff time, my time, that is added to that $6,800. So I think, as I mentioned, this is going to come back to council through a report dealing with the fire lanes, and it'll be something that will come back to council at the time of the budget to deal with the TOD signs, directional signage. And the other matter that probably will come back to council is having more enforcement staff. I know we would like to actually have a student devoted more time to parking enforcement, so that would be another budget decision council can make at the time of budget. So I'd like to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Any questions of Mr. Aquilina? There being none, then let's move on to consideration of the number one item that requires separate discussion. Mr. Bodner, that was yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering and Operations, Engineering Division Report number 2017-156, subject Zavitz Municipal Drain, Shirkston North Branch, East and West Trail Branch drains.
There's a seconder for the recommendation. Mr. Main? Discussion? Yes, Mr. Bodger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if I might take everyone to page 15, I think, on this one. Just a minute. Yeah, page 3 of the report, but 15 on the overall. And I just wanted to really praise staff on this one, because if you look on there, Port Colborne, the drains that are in Port Colborne were assessed a certain fee, and staff took it upon themselves because they thought it was quite onerous and not correct, and so they went to a appeals tribunal, and they were able to get the Zavitz drain reduced from $21,000 to $11,000, our charge, and the engineering fees on the Zavitz drain reduced from $52,000 to $9,000. So these fees would be paid directly by the people of Ward 4 that were assessed for this drain. This is a huge deal, and I wanted to acknowledge that, you know, staff's going to bat for everyone and seeing that this wasn't right and taking it to the tribunal and winning these significant savings. So thank you very much from the people that, you know, that would have paid that money, and thanks for keeping an eye on these things. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Any comment, Mr. Lee?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Bodner, thank you for the recognition.
Any other questions, issues on this point? There being none, has it been moved and seconded? All those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? It's carried. At this time, we move on to the issue of whether any notices of motion, Mr. Clerk. There are none. At this point, I would call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Dan, seconded by Mr. Councilor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. Meeting is adjourned. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of Council 30-17. Again today, Tuesday, October 10th, following the Committee of the Whole. Are there any addendum items, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, there is, Mr. Mayor. One addendum item, which is an addition of item 4. It was in the Committee of Council, but it was not copied over into the Council portion of the meeting, so that the Planning and Development Bylaw Enforcement Division Report Number 2017-155, Parking and Traffic, Holloway Bay Road, which was inadvertently omitted from the Council agenda, that would be added back into the agenda.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Kenny. That was Councillor Main. Sorry about that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? There being none, it shall be so indicated. I'd call for a motion to adopt the minutes of the special meeting of Council 28-17 held on September 25th, 2017, and the regular meeting of Council 29-17 held on September 25th as well, 2017. Motion to adopt those minutes moved by Mr. Main, seconded by Mrs. Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. There being none, I'd call for approval of those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any proclamations, Mr. Clerk?
No, not this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. Mr. Clerk, could you read those out?
There are 4 minutes to be approved by council tonight. Minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting, March 8, 2017. The minutes of the Port Colborne Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting of July 17th. Minutes of the Port Colborne Medical Education, Recruitment, and Health Services meeting of June 19th. And minutes of the Port Colborne Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of June 13th.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Mr. Bodner, Mr. Danch, seconded. Any comments or questions or discussion? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Consideration of bylaws. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, we have 5 bylaws this evening for 3 readings to be approved by council. Bylaw number 6521, 8817, being a bylaw to provide for a Section 4 and 78 engineer's report for a drainage works in the City of Port Colborne in the Regional Municipality of Niagara, known as the Zavitz Municipal Drain, Shirkston North Drain East and West Trail Branch Drains. Bylaw 6522, 8917, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Enviro Systems, Inc. for the tender for sewer flushing and CCTV inspection. Bylaw 6523-9017, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 89-2000, being a bylaw regulating parking and traffic on city roads, Holloway Bay Road. Bylaw 6524-9117, being a bylaw to adopt a building inspector. And bylaw number 6525-9217, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporated City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of October 10th, 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I call for a motion to approve those bylaws in bulk. Moved by Mrs. Kenny, seconded by Mr. Bodner. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session. That council do not proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. A, Chief Administrative Officer report number 2017-159 regarding a non-union job evaluation project pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(b), personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and subsection 2D, labor relations or employee negotiation. The second issue is Chief Administrative Officer's report number 2017-158 regarding professional firefighters collective agreement pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(b), personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and subsection 2D, labor relations or employee negotiations. All those in favor? Opposed? No. I thought we had more. Councilor Kenny? Moved by, second by Councilor Dembray. Again, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're now adjourned into closed session.